It's a mean age. But it is going to be a beautiful future as long as we don't fuck it up. I'm Brian McWilliams, and this is Mean Age Daydream, where I bring you unfiltered comedy, criticism, philosophy, and politics with a Mean Age Daydream. What's up, muckalucks? Welcome to the show, my little ducklings. I am Brian McWilliams. This is Mean Age Daydream on the Lions Liberty Network, and I hope everybody is having a great week. I know I myself am having a tough one because it's entered into the driest possible season in California, and I have exceptionally dry skin. I remember when I used to teach and play tennis, I would get cracks in my hands on the East Coast teaching tennis. Now, at least there's a reason for my hands to crack and bleed, right? Because I'm out there in the cold and the wind. I'm teaching kids how to hit balls. Not here. No, here, what am I doing? Nothing. My fingers are bleeding. My skin is cracking. And of course, my beard's long enough to tickle my nose the entire time. But anyway, enough of my problems. Welcome to the show. We have many other problems to discuss here, guys. And don't worry, this episode is not going to be all complaining. It is going to be equal parts complaining, talking about some of the shocking revelations that have come out from Michael Schellenberger at Public and Racket, talking about the basically the counter United States security threat, right? Every intelligence agency that exists to create counter-intelligence operations, social media ops around the world, turn them inside, looking inward, and even earlier than we thought, because we thought this all began with the Election Integrity Partnership. Turns out it had started years before that, focused on broader narratives, and I'll talk about the development of this through this counter. Let's see. I'll tell you real quick before I forget, the CTIL, which Schellenberg talks about, stands for the Cyber Threat Intelligence League. It's like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, except none of them are gentlemen. Neither are they extraordinary. They're just evil. It's like the Legion of Doom. That's really what it is. It's like it is like the octopus in what is the name called? Spectre in the Bond films. That's really what's going on here. An unaffiliated league, vying for government funding and creating evil plots to overthrow our understanding of reality. Something that I talked about this past weekend, actually, at the collection over there. The California Libertarian Executive Committee got together, so I spoke at that event. But as I said, it's not going to be all negative. I'm going to talk about what I feel is the great hope for our society, for humanity. It just happens to be the Great British Bakeoff. I know it's a letdown, but I think it's really going to bring people together, especially this holiday season where you can finally stop talking about politics because there's one show out there that exists to give us a little bit of a break. I want to give a shout out here just for those watching on YouTube to our sponsor for the show today. That is, of course, Crowd Health, longtime sponsor of the show. If you're on the podcast, you will get to hear much more about them later on. But for those of you on video, I do want to mention Crowd Health. You can get a fantastic deal by using code LIONS at joincrowdhealth.com/Lions. And you'll be able to get $99 per month to kick off your relationship with them. Fantastic. Not healthcare, a voluntary society that operates on your behalf to pay all of your bills direct to the doctors and really help you avoid the nightmares and headaches that come with a typical insurance model, rejections of procedures and services, etc. Okay, let's get into it. So first things first, I'm going to save this. I guess I started talking about CTIL. Let's talk a little bit more about this. So as I mentioned, Michael Schellenberger and his publication, Public. It's called Public and it's publication. A little on the nose there, Michael. He has this whole new trove of documents that was released to them by a whistleblower. And it talks about this anti-disinformation group called the Cyber Threat Intelligence League. Now, this article, I've read through it. It's exceptionally long. I encourage all of you to check it out. I actually do support Michael Schellenberger's publications. I give to this publication because I want to support real journalism, which is what this is. But a very long article. I'll try to sum it up briefly. Essentially, they've traced this back to 2018, 2017 even, under still the Obama White House, when this whistleblower, a former British intelligence analyst, was in the room when she received the instructions to create a counter-disinformation project to stop a, quote, repeat of 2016. Now, we've talked previously about the Election Integrity Partnership I mentioned earlier in the show, which was this private-public partnership created essentially to combat what they called misinformation, disinformation about the election coming from Russia. We all know that was nonsense in the guise of battling COVID narratives. This CTI League, the Cyber Threat Intelligence League, this was the precursor to all of that. They essentially laid the groundwork in there, and it was utilizing government contractors like people in the CIA, other military operations, working in psychological operations abroad. One of the people that is heavily involved in this was involved in the Arab Spring, of course, trying to get people to rally and rise up against their own governments by use of social propaganda. These are the people that they brought in specifically to undermine the American understanding of the narratives, undermine the Americans' ability to perceive threats. Now, on a side tangent, as I mentioned 2 minutes ago, I did talk about this at the Libertarian convention, whatever you want to call it, the Libertarian Executive Board meeting that happened in California, which I attended, because I am now the communications director for the party. So I gave a presentation there, but I also gave a speech. And I talked about something I have spoken about here before, which is the government threat to your perception of reality, and how this is one of the most important things that we have to take back from the government. One of the most important things that we have to fight for is the ability to understand what is truth, what is reality objectively. And the government clearly is operating against that in every way. We are being propagandized. We are being lied to. We are being, as this will show, we are having the understanding of even conversations that we think we're having with other people online. We're having those intercepted and turned away from what the truth is, from an actual conversation and from an actual trend, let's say, and into something else that the government wants. Now, in this regard to the CTI League, they talked about how they would take over, and essentially what they would do is work with social media companies directly, of course, which is something that government can't do legally directly. So they partner with the League. The League then goes and tries to partner with academia, with online social media companies, as we saw, partnering with the Stanford Internet Observatory. That is how the government, and they explicitly laid this out, by the way. They explicitly say in this reporting, we can't go direct to social media companies as a government. Actually, the United Kingdom people were saying this in regards to their role. They said, well, we have to do it differently because we do have the rules against that here. At least we pretend to. So, as I pointed out, when Biden said, well, we're going to work with private companies and private institutions to combat white extremism, when he said that, he already knew what they were doing because it started in the Obama era. What they were they're crafting in order to circumvent our free speech, circumvent any protections we might have about the government trying to influence directly. So this precursor, the CTIL League, they would work to, as they said in their own reporting here, work to get posts removed by pressuring social media companies, working directly with those companies. They would go in and using these tricks and tactics that they learned in other nations, they would come in, they would circumvent and try to subvert hashtags. If something's trending online, they'll try to take it, turn it into something else through this concentrated effect of the people that they're paying. Sock accounts. They said they would generate a lot of sock accounts in order, sock puppet accounts, you want to call them, to spread their own version of this misinformation, to try to confuse people. And you'll see this happening, by the way. You'll see if you're ever commenting on a popular topic and you happen to hit a nerve, you will see a lot of responses from nonsense sock accounts even now. And I guarantee you, those are government-based accounts. Either that or they're from a public-private partnership group that the government is funding in a roundabout way, partnered with in a roundabout way. Because they're talking about it distinctly in this document, in this reporting. So these sock accounts come in, they then respond with something completely off the wall. Either it's an accusation, either it's just an off the wall tangent to confuse, it's a blatant misrepresentation of the facts, just saying, well, that's not sure. I read something else that this was about, blah, blah, blah. These are designed to do this. They're designed to confuse the narrative and make you get burrowed down and buried in this level of confusion and misdirection to the point where you just go, I don't know what to believe. And then they win because whatever you actually do believe, they've now been able to circumvent that. Not only that, but they would also, time and time again, especially during COVID, where they would attack people directly. anybody that was of a prominent nature, anybody that got a lot of traction online, they would go in and try to make them a persona non grata. They would attack them viciously with direct assaults, questioning their character. They try to dig up dirt on them. This is your government, by the way, working against you and your ability to voice your independent thoughts. Right? It's hard to make it any more clear than that the government is trying to attack you. Government-funded agents working in partnerships with social media companies are targeting you based on your opinion. If it doesn't go with the mainstream narrative by that government in power at the time, they're going to attack you personally. However, they're going to do it through these sock accounts. I guess, ironically, Nikki Haley would be our savior there, right? Nikki Haley and her plan to force everybody to have a registered name. But of course, we know what would happen there is that since it's government funded, since it's a government operation, somehow I feel like those social media accounts will get vetted, despite the fact that there might be a law requiring them to disclose who they really are. I feel like those sock accounts will still get made. But in this document, it lays out people like Jay Bhattacharya, others that spoke out, like Dr. God, I always forget this guy's name, and I subscribe to I read his shit every day. Robert Malone. Guys like Robert Malone. This lays out how they would specifically try to attack them personally, to have them depersoned, to have them embroiled in some sort of turmoil where they have to defend themselves against allegations of sex or allegations that they're working in malpractice or allegations of financial, whatever it might be. They had to take them out on a personal level, and it's all written down here. Not only that, they did a whole spreadsheet, a whole roster of people using things like hashtag Free California. So anybody insisting that California should be free. They had phrases like, for example, all jobs matter. And I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that they had in here. But again, this article's so long, I can't really find it off the top of my hand here. They had phrases that they would instantly try to attack if they started to rise up because these were problematic to government. Anything questioning vaccines, anything questioning the origins, anything questioning why you should be staying home. These phrases were targeted for attack, for misdirection, and as I mentioned earlier, to completely undermine the overall consensus and conversation, to get people riled up and angry, or to have them simply deplatformed. And they said that phrases like that, they would work with social media companies in order to have them settle down, have them be, as we say, shadow banned, as we are on YouTube. Another reminder, please subscribe to our podcast, hit notifications on YouTube. Rumble, you can just watch. I don't think they shadow ban us, but YouTube for sure. But they would take this and shove them down, down, down. And so who's working with this company? As I mentioned before, these are people that are working with the FBI, CISA. They're working with whatever the European version of this would be, probably working with people in the UK, M6. Now, something else that's kind of interesting here is that they developed this very specific framework called the Adversarial Misinformation and Influence Tactics and Techniques. This was a document that was created through a group called MisinfoSec, the MisinfoSec working group, because it's called Misinformation Security, which falls under the recategorization of global threats to our security, something I touched on many episodes ago, but is important to talk about. Don't forget that when they talk about the threats to security and threats to infrastructure, we have now, the government has now, I can't say we, the government has now categorized the misinformation or disinformation, aka, and the cognitive ability of Americans to believe the narratives the government's saying as infrastructure. I'm not making this up. You can look it up yourself. It is called cognitive infrastructure. That concept, that bullshit phrase that was invented in order to allow our government to target us for psychological operations and censorship was created before they adopted it lately under this framework, this AMIT framework, Adversarial Misinformation, Influence, Tactics, and Technique. So, as such, here you go. The information environment, they talk about the physical dimensions, computers, keywords. Informational dimension, where information is collected, links, physical and cognitive dimensions, key characteristics, and cognitive dimension. There we go. The cognitive dimension, guys, your ability to understand, think, and link disparate concepts together in order to understand what's happening to you or what's being done to you. So under this cognitive dimension, in the emit social work, we've got where human decision takes place, dimension of intangibles such as morals, unit cohesion, public opinion, situational awareness, key characteristics, perceptions, emotions, awareness, and understanding. Perception, emotion, awareness, understanding. Think about all of the misinformation coming from the federal sector, coming from the Stanford Internet Observatory. Think about what posts are being removed, what's being amplified, what's being shadow banned. I keep thinking throttled. There we go. That's the phrase I'm looking for. Think about the animosity that was going on. Think about the posts that were taken down. Think about the counter posts that are being posted up. All of this draws from this original document. Now, I won't go on I've already talked 12, 15 minutes about this. I won't go on too much further on this past saying your government is evil, okay? Flat out. When you have somebodies, when you have people that are invested in controlling everything you think, your perception of reality, your understanding of reality, and adamant about coming in and making sure you don't see what the conversation really is. And if you do see it, instantaneously trying to get in there and subvert it or mislead you down a different path by using accusations, false information, confusing tactics, or I don't even know what else. You name it, they got it. Blatant denials, I guess. All these accounts coming in saying, you're a liar, you know what you're talking about, all these sock accounts. Your government has no interest in you understanding your reality. They have no interest in you keeping your sanity. That's something I'm bringing to what we do here. Taking sanity back. Because we have lost our minds intentionally by virtue of the government interfering in how we interact culturally, societally, online, how we interact with our neighbors. This is by design. I talked about this before this even came out. I predicted this, saying the divisive things that happen, there's a reason the government gets involved in this. There's a reason the news media is covering certain topics more than others. It's to divide families. It is to attack community. It is to break neighborhoods. It is to kill schools and play groups that involve and make you talk about stuff that's going to drive you crazy so you can't agree. We have it laid out here. That's exactly what they have been doing, and we have it in black and white from their own documents. We have to take back our sanity. We have to take back our reality. We have to take back our emotional control, all things that are being attacked by the government by virtue of these programs. Okay, let's move on to something else, something that's just as divisive as everything else, intentionally, and of course, very profitable, and that is green energy. Now, the COP, the cock operators of the Pacific, no, it's the Climate and Something Conference, COP, that they have in Europe. That's just wrapping up. Actually, I think maybe it's still going for a couple days. Of course, who's speaking about climate now? Oh, Hillary Clinton. Yes, Hillary Clinton, that great advocate for climate justice. Of course, the Clinton Global Initiative, a very useful slush fund for anybody who wants to really help people in the world take care of green energy initiatives that just coincidentally happened to collapse and lose 80 or 90% of its inbound donations when Hillary Clinton did not win the presidency and left the sphere of influence within the state. But let me show you a little clip here. And this ties into something that I give a lot of patting on the back today, guys. I give myself credit for predicting even earlier than this. But here, let me share this real quick. This is Hillary Clinton talking about this new green death toll that we're witnessing. And then I'll talk to you about how this goes even further than what she's saying. And I'm going to tell you exactly what they're going to do to this. Okay, here's old Hill Dog.
We're seeing and beginning to pay attention and to count and record the deaths that are related to climate, and by far the biggest killer is extreme heat. I mean, even in Europe last summer, which has the ability to count and figure out what happened, they recorded 61,000 deaths because of the heat in Europe. We don't have that kind of number yet from Africa, Asia, Latin America, but we know and estimate that we probably could measure about 500,000 deaths. And the majority of those are women and girls, and particularly pregnant women.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that all these pregnant women, these young pregnant women are just keeling over from it being a little bit too hot. So right there, I'm going to call bullshit. How many pregnant women do you know that are elderly, that are somehow so feeble that having it be a little bit hot is going to kill them? And if that were true, by the way, we would have heard about it. I guarantee the mainstream media would have gleefully jumped on that soul specter and these poor women that are dying of heat stroke in masses, according to Hillary Clinton, right? Apparently, women and young children are keeling over and dying from the heat. Now, I've not heard boo about this in mainstream media. If it were true, we would have heard something. Trust me, these people live and die to report crap like this. But the broader concept here is that you heard her throw out the phrase, 500,000 people are going to die from climate, right? Bullshit. We're at a point in our society, worldwide, where we're at the lowest level of climate-related deaths. And yes, that includes heat-related, that includes cold-related. Now, the reason that heat-related deaths are typically more deadly now than cold-related is because we have fire, we have insulation, we have heaters, gas-powered heaters, coal-powered heaters, by the way, which, of course, they want to eliminate because these psychopaths want people to die and they want to punish the people that don't have it as nice as some of us in the first world countries. But rarely do people really die of extreme cold or extreme heat any longer. It's just not really a thing. If you've got electricity, which the war on electricity, by the way, is coming, especially in third world nations, as I'm pointing out many times before, animals like Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and Bill Gates and whoever else is out there stumping the World Economic Forum to eliminate fossil fuels, they are waging a genocidal war against the poor. That's what it is. Not only is it a genocidal war, because if you cut off coal, fossil fuels, you are basically killing the hot and the cold, right? The things that they're telling us are going to kill so many people, you're stopping their ability to survive that. But not only that, of course, this all is a grand scheme of monetary relocation, right? Because if you're condemning these people and saying you can't use these anymore, well, what's the solution? Well, it's going to be to send money overseas. It already is. I mean, the World Economic Bank, the International Monetary Fund are already essentially just wealth redistribution networks. We pay off shitty nations doing socialist activities to keep being shitty and keep being socialist by virtue of these IMFs and World Bank programs. But in a broader sense, the boast that Hillary Clinton is making, that 500,000 lives are going to be lost, well, that's the tip of the iceberg, gang. Because what's really going to happen here is that they are going to start fudging the numbers similar to what happened with COVID. Under COVID, you'll recall that people that died of gunshot wounds and car accidents and stabs to the neck, if they died with COVID, well, then they died from COVID. And many times they caught COVID going into the hospital because the hospitals were rife with COVID. Yet they were labeled as COVID deaths. Why were they labeled COVID deaths? Oh, that's right, because the hospitals got paid something like $5,000 per COVID death. So all of the monetary incentive was to pay them out. Naturally, you have a broken healthcare system in addition to a broken pharmacological system wherein everybody's incentivized to take the vaccines now because the numbers are trumped up as far as the death tolls, as far as the infection tolls. We now know that both of those were catastrophically wrong. But I think about the projections like Hillary Clinton's talking about. I think about how we were told, right? Niall Ferguson, right? That asshole over in the UK, over at the National Institute of Health, or it might have been somewhere else where he was projecting from. No, it was somewhere else. I think it was like a college. Blanking on where he's in residence. But he followed his track history of predicting that something like, millions and millions, 20 million people will be dead from COVID. And of course, the world leaders freaked out. Oh my God, we must do something. Now, this, of course, turned out to be absolutely wrong, abysmally wrong. Gavin Newsom, I think, projected something like, California would have 3.5 million cases of COVID by October. And of course, what ended up happening was like 25,000 cases, Now, those numbers are not exactly correct. I'm just kind of slushing through it here. But point being, Hillary Clinton's using nonsense numbers. And similar to COVID, where you had the deaths attributed to COVID that came from gunshot wounds, when it comes to this climate nonsense, you're already seeing some of it happen with climate-related violence, right? They'll say that violence in the Middle East or Africa or whatever is related to climate. There's no way for them to prove this. There's no possible way for them to fucking prove that. It's just nonsense. But they will start claiming those deaths. You're seeing it here. You're seeing Hillary Clinton lay out the framework for how they are going to lie to you, how they're going to misrepresent what this quote unquote climate change is doing to the world, which is, for all intents and purposes, not much. Not much. Look around. There's an argument to be made that the improving level of carbon in the world, that a slight warming is actually very good for us. And by the way, at the same time, the solar cycles, if you believe in the solar cycle impacting the world temperature, which I personally think probably has some impact, we're also going into one of the lowest, what do they call it? A Maunder minimum, I think. We're going into a minimal cycle as far as how the sun is going to be interacting, how it's going to, the solar flares are going to be going out there. So we might be in for quite a cold spell. If that's the case, maybe a little bit of carbon would help us out. Maybe we'll actually get through and avoid people dying from cold deaths, which of course would still count as climate deaths, according to Hillary. But when you see her talking about taking the claim for these deaths, trust me, you're going to start seeing a lot more reporting about people that are violently dying, and they're going to say that is because of climate change. You're going to see the efforts of people that might be impacted by lack of farming because they're having a war on nitrogen-based fertilizers. This is what's happening over in places like Denmark and I think maybe Norway, where the farmers are protesting because, in Sri Lanka. Don't forget, Sri Lanka's government got overthrown, by the way, because they had waged war on nitrogen-based fertilizers, and those fertilizers were so essential for the farming that the entire infrastructure, the entire food base of that country collapsed. They will tell you, guaranteed, that anybody that starved during that time, climate death. Why? Because the food had to be altered because of the nitrogen, and that still is climate change related, so climate death. It's kind of like the World Health Organization and this pandemic treaty. And I told you about this previously too, how they're now redefining anything under this pandemic treaty, right? Anything that's a threat to human health. They consider climate change a threat to human health. That means that they can lock down, they can curtail your ability to go to work, to open a business, to travel based on climate. Now they've got another way to say, well, climate's going to come get you. It's because they can make up these numbers. They can attribute whatever to climate change. That's the fact. So keep your eyes up, guys. Don't believe the hype. Keep your eyes peeled because it's going to get wacky out there. And when pressed on how they defend these violences based on climate change, they will give you zero answer. Zero answer. I guarantee it. They're not going to be able to back it up. They're not going to give you any real way they're coming to these numbers. They're not going to give you real data collection because they know it's a fraud. They know it's a fraud. And it's all collapsing around their ears. And they know this is why they're going to ramp up the propaganda, because the first thing you do when you know things are collapsing is you wage war on the public. Same thing happened during COVID, guys. Remember, the censorship ratcheted up to such a high degree right before the House of Cards fell in on itself. Same thing's going to happen with climate change. All right, let's move on to, something a little bit more happy-go-lucky here. I can't close my window. There we go. Okay, happy-go-lucky here, which is, and then I'll wrap up with a little bit of thoughts on Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis, by the way. So I am a fan of the Great British Bakeoff. I know, me, Brian McWilliams, but it's true because I'll tell you what, my wife got me into it. Now, number one, I've talked a bit, I think, on the show. I have a background in cooking. I was a cook in kitchens for a long time, so I've got my working class bona fides in my hot hand, as they used to call it in the kitchen. That was the hand you'd pick up all your hot shit and you'd steam it up and get it all. Oh, I'm muted? Wait a minute, are you saying I'm muted right now? That's not good. Well, hopefully that sound's coming through because if not, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, hopefully I don't have to re-record this. It seems like it's going through here. Anywho, so, good. This is why I shouldn't respond to comments. It's just, I'm going to call him out now. Aristocock King Yeti has stupid earbuds, and I'm reading his fucking comment and responding to it. Fuck you, King Yeti. All right, so my cousin didn't cut out. Anyway, so I got my bona fides out. I was a cook for a long time. Something like 5 years. I was cooking every summer through college, before I went to college, and also during college because I got suspended for rioting at Penn State. Yes, that happens. I shook a lamppost. I stopped myself, and here's where I came for a basic distrust of police officers. By the way, I stopped myself shaking this lamppost. It was during this stupid basketball riot over the summer, and I was like, "This is fucking terrible. This is going to fall down. It's going to hit somebody. It's going to crunch somebody." So I let go. I walk away, and a cop grabs me, and I'm like, "Oh, fuck me." I'm like, "What, man?" He's like, "All right, you got to come with me." I was like, it's fine, whatever. So I just walk with this cop, and I'm just drunk. I'm like, "Whatever, man, let go of me. I'm not going to run away. I'll just walk with you." So I walk with him. I'm like the best possible criminal you can catch, right? I'm just like, whatever. So I go. I'm like, "What's going to happen?" I'm just shook a lamppost, and I let go. I give it a misdemeanor. That's it, misdemeanor. But because Penn State wanted to make a public basically burn the witches at the stake of anybody that dared to take part in a riot, they called me in. They had a tribunal, sat me down, and said, "Okay, what happened?" I said, "Well, here's what happened. I went out, I shook this thing, and I stopped." And the cop lies directly to this tribunal and says, "No, I pulled him off. He wasn't stopping. I pulled him off." And I said, "Fuck you." I remember yelling at the guy. I was like, "Fuck you, you lying fucking piece of fucking shit." I went off on the guy in front of them. Probably didn't help my case, but at that point, it's kind of like, all this bullshit where they had on college campuses with this Rule 9 garbage and basically eliminating anybody's ability to defend themselves against sexual allegations of misconduct, where you sit down in front of a tribunal if you're accused of sexual assault or rape or anything. Well, good luck, because they ain't going to believe you. Well, that's out to me. Thank God it wasn't rape. It was just shaking a lamppost. Good name for masturbating, shaking a lamppost. So this fucker lied. I got suspended for a semester and worked at Hooters during that time. Good times working at Hooters. So anyway, getting back to my main point, I have an interest in cooking and baking. I still take a lot of pride in being able to cook good food. So, focus camera. So the Great British Bakeoff is a show my wife watched. It gained some popularity. I was like, okay, whatever. But I tell you, I got into this show like you wouldn't believe. Several reasons. Number one, it is fascinating to see something. You do feel you're learning a little bit of the trade. You're seeing some techniques. And especially now where everything's so expensive, going out to eat, buying a pie, good luck. Going to the grocery store is exceptionally expensive, even though we're being told, remember, that Bidenomics is working. Biden says Bidenomics so many times in his Twitter feed, it sounds like he's got Tourette's in addition to dementia. But we're being told Bidenomics is working. We're being told, and I remember I tweeted this out yelling about it, that inflation's at 0%, when really what it's at, according to all the major indexes, is 3.2%. But remember, inflation's not 3.2%. Inflation right now, this year, is 3.2% on top of the 18% inflation that we had throughout the pandemic. So I love this. We're doing it with Bidenomics. We're getting back to regular price. No, we're not. No, we're not. They're still 20% higher than they were in 2020. But I digress. You watch the show, you're learning a lot about the cooking, but here's the beauty of it. There's no politics in this show. None. The people on the show, unlike so many of the programs that you see, the reality shows that are on here, that are at each other's throats, it's a competition. This is a cooking competition, right? They're trying to win. I think like 100,000 pounds or something like that for winning. Or maybe they get jack shit. I don't even know. I don't really care. And neither do they. They're just excited to be there. The hosts are nice and funny and gracious. The comic presenters, like there's two main hosts, Paul and Prue, and then there's this comedian Noel, who's been on a ton of British stuff. He's ton of British TV. He's best known for The Mighty Boosh, if anybody's ever seen that. He's on it, and now they have some other like black comedian or TV host lady that's on it. But even then, it's very lighthearted. It's all complimentary little jokes. The people are happy and smiling, and they're getting along, and they're rooting for each other. And there's no politics. And there's no fucking bullshitting or wheezing or statements. Nobody's making a pie that's a trans chick with a cock out there and little chocolate sprinkles for her pubic hair, or anybody's making a pie that has a baby in it to go pro-abortion. None of that shit. You just watch and you check out and you leave your brain at the door. It's actual entertainment for the sake of entertainment, because that's what we don't have. I mentioned earlier in the show, getting your sanity back. Name a program you could watch nowadays where you can simply watch it and enjoy it and not have to percolate within your brain at high levels bubbling up to try to figure out what you're supposed to believe, what you're being propagandized to think because the writers of this show are left-wing fucknuts, or it's on a network like Paramount Plus, which apparently just cut an interview off because Kelsey Grammer said that he liked Donald Trump. Just being able to watch a show alone with your thoughts, or being happy watching people enjoy what they're doing and get along and not wallow in the slop that we're being forced to be mired in nonstop because of the politicized environment we're in. It is like therapy. I'm telling you guys, even if you're not into baking, even if you hate the British, give this show a watch. It's a great holiday watching show too, because it's a lot of the recipes are really holiday centric. Cookies, cakes, breads, pies. 'Tis the season, my peoples. Check it out. Trust me. Let me know what you think. Tweet at me at Brian McWilliams. Okay. Last thing, I will talk real briefly because this is a little bit old news now, but I want to talk about a couple things. Gavin Newsom, Ron DeSantis faced off. Now, it got like 5 million views. Sean Hannity hosted. Sean Hannity's a bit of a doofus, but it had some interesting back and forth. Some of the major things, I will say flat out, Gavin Newsom, I feel, got his ass stomped. And I did not think that was going to happen going in. I thought going in that Newsom was going to be fairly easy to just lie his way past DeSantis. I thought he was going to be too slick. DeSantis has not looked great in debate formats. He has not looked great in social settings, for that matter. He looks very uncomfortable. I did not watch it live, by the way. I read the transcripts of this, so I didn't get to see if he wore his high-heeled boots or not. I presume he did. But from the get-go, DeSantis attacked Newsom, and really every time Gavin Newsom responded, the stats he was saying were just sounded stupid and absurd, and you could tell where he wouldn't answer the questions. And DeSantis would call him out on that, as did Sean Hannity. Questions like, why are so many people fleeing California? And then Newsom would go off on a tangent about California and accuse Ron DeSantis of hating gays. And he goes, that's not the question. The question is, why are so many people fleeing? They flee for lower taxes. They flee for better schooling. Newsom tries to make up some stat that shows that somehow, he kept saying this, California charges its lower class less than we charge billionaires and whatever. So something just what? Okay, Florida has no income tax. Florida's tax rate not only is far lower, Florida's corporate tax is lower. Like, what are you talking about, Newsom? Like, clear lies. He would talk about the education system, right? And he's saying, well, California has better educational outcomes. No. Sean Hannity fact-checked him on that. Something you never really see is fact-checking Gavin Newsom. Florida had the number one, I think, ranked educational outcomes. California was 20th. They talked about things like the COVID response. Gavin Newsom throws out a nonsense stat. And now I talked last show about how fascinating it was that the LA Times put out their own reviews of a Lancet study and another study showing that when comorbidities are taken into account, things like diabetes, massive obesity, or anything else that could be considered a comorbidity that made it high-level COVID death, right? Because we know it's 0.002% of the population or something, but still, people did die if they were exceptionally old, had diabetes, had whatever. My camera keeps going in and out of focus, and it's driving me fucking nuts. Because it's a little bit dark in here. I put up my light, but I got to turn on another light for next episode. So when that was all taken into account, it was either dead even when you didn't take in the comorbidities and just adjusted for pure age. When you did, California had a 34% worse response rate, 34% worse death rate. So Gavin Newsom throws out some nonsense stat that California was 29% better, which it was immediately corrected by Newsom. I mean, he really took it to him as far as exposing Newsom for the liar he is. He showcased the poop map in San Francisco, talking about the public health crisis. They went back and forth against, and again, this shows you Gavin Newsom is such a disgusting, oily snake, which is why I think finally we might be rid of him. 51% of people in California, which is a first, now disapprove of Newsom. But Newsom's trying to argue that California is safer, that they have lower crime rates, using, again, nonsense statistics, where then, and to his credit, DeSantis comes right back and says, no, when you look at it, California's got 500 violent crimes per 100,000 people. Here's the data. You're a liar. They call each other liars about 80 times, but DeSantis is data is easily found and easily provable. And anybody who lives in California knows what our crime rate's at. He talked about the massive exodus of businesses. He talked about the legalization of retail theft, which is true and is happening here. He talked about, let's see, what was the other things? Oh, he also hit him on, said the poop map, talking about public health and how Gavin Newsom, there's literally a map that exists, and it's a brilliant move to bring it up, in San Francisco showing where human feces is, that you map it and you put it on there that people have to use to get the poop cleaned up. Do I think it's going to make any difference in the Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis back and forth? No. Trump's got this thing in a runaway. It's not going to be close. He is going to be the candidate. There's just no way around it. Unless somehow the Democrats can find a way, and there's this bullshit happening where they're going after him now. We talked about it on Meme Wars on Friday, but there is this bullshit now where they're trying to go after him with civil suits. Right, because New York, of course, has made it so that you can, special privileges for people that want to go after Donald Trump. Now they're saying that anybody from January 2nd, it's supposed to be in D.C., anybody from January 6th that is adversely affected, they can now sue Donald Trump for civil damages. So you can see this as a tactic. I mean, it's insane to try to argue that Donald Trump should be responsible for the actions of people he's nowhere around, that he told to not go in violently. And we saw the videotapes of these events as well. But apparently now you can sue Donald Trump over that. So that's the latest tactic they're using. They're trying to go after him in civil suits, embroil him in that, try to bankrupt him. Regardless, DeSantis is not going to make up a lot of ground, not enough ground on Donald Trump. So it doesn't matter. But at least it showcased Gavin Newsom's weakness. And I had said this previously, how Gavin Newsom, if this ever got out into a federal debate, if a nationalized debate, how his records with COVID, with homelessness, with the economy, with taxes, with violence, all of these things would make it so easy to put him in the ground. And full credit to Ron DeSantis, he did it. He did it so much, by the way, that it has been reported in numerous sources, by the way, that at the end of the debate, they were supposed to do, Sean Hannity goes, hey, are you guys up to do another segment? Keep it going for another 10 minutes after this next commercial break. They both go, yeah. They come back. Nobody's on stage. They're gone. Report came out. Newsom's wife pulled him off stage to end the debate. He was cuckolded, you could say, in front of an audience because his wife didn't want him on the air anymore. That goes to show you how badly he was getting his ass kicked, at least by my interpretation. Because sources told NBC News that Jennifer Seibel Newsom went on stage during the break and said, "We're done," and pulled her husband off. That's not a good look. That is not a good look. I'll tell you that much. And according to this report too, Newsom apparently before that had said he'd be happy to do an extended hour, but Seibel Newsom came into the debate room at least twice to raise objections, including over DeSantis talking about her father left California for Florida. Oh yeah, that's right. Also, DeSantis pointed out that Jennifer Seibel Newsom's parents had left for California or left California for Florida, which is true. Which is true. So she objected to that. How are you going to object about it? They moved to Florida, lady. What do you want me to say here? So, an embarrassing night for Newsom. I hope it's a nail in the coffin for his political aspirations. It would be wonderful to be saved from him. I do wonder, almost kind of in the vein of the Republican House has said that they are going to formally move to impeach Biden next week, which means that they can now have subpoena power, which is interesting because obviously we want to see what happens with that. But at the same time, I almost wonder if it's a saving grace for Democrats because Biden running ain't going to go well. He's already losing to Trump in most of the polls I've seen recently. His Bidenomics Tourette's is not working in any way, shape, or form. The economy is in the shit. We're still embroiled with Israel. Very unpopular, I think, for the most part now, our support of Israel. The amount of money we're spending, people are really looking at that closely. Ukraine funding, obviously very unpopular. And I think that Biden being impeached and maybe the Democrats then to say, look, that's it. You get impeached. There's too much There's too much information coming out. This looks really bad. You got to go. Maybe that ushers in somebody else. I don't know if that's Kamala. I don't know if that's somebody else. But it might be the best thing for us if it's not Biden. I mean, you look how Newsom did. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it assures his destruction. Anyway, that's going to do it, guys. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, subscribe to the podcast, please. If you have a few minutes, you're going to be on holiday break soon, go give us a nice review on Spotify, on Apple's iTunes. Really helps. Make sure to hit that notification button if you're watching on YouTube, or follow us on Rumble. Of course, you can follow us online at Lions of Liberty, at Brian McWilliams, or at John Odermatt. And stay tuned. Some exciting things going to be happening in the new year, guys. I can't talk about them just yet. We're waiting to roll them out. But check in with your libertarian messaging, lp.org. Going to be some interesting things coming out that I just ran through with the board over this past weekend. Really excited about. I think a lot of people are going to get very excited about it. Both those of you who are on board with libertarianism, those people that are checked out and looking for something new to believe in, that are sick of both parties, we're giving them something to believe in, and it's going to be really fun. So that's it. From Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty, from Mean Age Daydream, keep those electric eyes on me, babe, and keep that ray gun to my head.